Hi again, it's just me, and you'll see on that first video I didn't know that arrow was supposed to be there, so uh, I'm taking it off now. I'm going over here. Okay, so we're back, and these two bits are quite small. There's a lot of information in here, but it all boils down for this PowerPoint. All boils down to one thing: is that you need to basically have a timeline of how your implementation is going to roll out. So don't get all panicky when you see all these slides. You think I know you guys now, eh? Anyways, so basically, this is all about your implementation of your business plan, and it is an Excel chart or an Excel spreadsheet or a chart of some sort that has a overview of your targets. So some of you have already told me you're aiming for March 2018 or September 2017 or whatever. So I'm glad that you're formulating those ideas in your head, and then you can really think about in terms of, okay, what do I need to do when, et cetera, et cetera. So by having that schedule, it helps you keep things on track. And as things kind of either go well or they don't go well, you can make adjustments to that schedule to suit your purposes. Okay. And the second part of that is you're gonna identify really what are my big barriers to getting this done. And I'd say probably the first one is your financing of some way, shape, or form. You have to figure out how you're going to finance your venture. But there may be some other barriers that come to mind as you're moving along. So let's just quickly roll through this. I don't want you to get, like I said, don't get too distracted. Some of this will apply to you, some of it won't, et cetera, et cetera. You know the spiel. So you're going to think about your business startup checklist. And some of this stuff is the stuff that I was having you do over the holidays. Think about your name search, your business registration, et cetera, et cetera. Make that decision whether you're going to go sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. A lot of that thinking's been done, but there are tactical things that need to be done at a certain point in time. But you also know that some of those things involve money. So if you're not thinking of kickstarting or getting that, opening your doors until March 2018, then you time things appropriately. Registering for HST, applying for your vendor's permits, etc. You can register as an employer for CRA if you need to, and also decide whether or not you're going to be part of the Workplace Safety Insurance Board. If you have employees, then that makes that decision pretty easy. So there are bits and pieces, and as you work through your business registration, those things will naturally pop up. So they'll say, okay, you've registered for a business. Do you want to register for HST, or do you want to register for WSIB, et cetera, et cetera. You've talked with Darren about what you need in terms of your mentors, your business advisory piece. You want to think about who you're going to have as a lawyer, your accountant, business advisors, et cetera. Those are individual for each of you. And then you'll want to open a bank account. And I know, speaking to Tia, you've made that. I know you've already made that decision, or you've made that step about separating your personal and your work finances, which is a really good idea to do that right off the top. And the banks are all different. It's interesting. We had Kevin last week was from RBC, and we're going to be bringing in some more of his team members to come speak to you directly about RBC and what they do. But you've got options there. You've got all those banks, but you also have credit unions and like Libro, and they have a different approach to things. So use your feet wisely and go after some more information on that stuff. You want to start thinking about, okay, I'm going to open in March 2018, so I need to know what's the current zoning, what do I need in terms of permits, etc. That's the stuff we talked about in the last PowerPoint. And then if you have actually a place you're actually doing business, a retail shop, etc., you'll want to make sure that that's all tidied up in some way, shape, or form. These are all tactical pieces. You want to think about your insurance, your telephone, your internet, etc., your accounts, your cloud storage, all those kind of things. And you're going to start thinking about your printing needs in terms of what are you going to do for your business cards and your website and your brochures. If you're going to do it at all. I can tell you, our first year of business, we spent $300 on brochures that I'm sitting here in my office, and I can look over and I can see the box, and I think there's still about 260 in there. So Today's business environment is not one that is about brochures unless you're dealing with a very specific market. So social media has done a great job in getting rid of a lot of that type of advertising material. So think about that. It's going to be different for each of you. If I was dealing with a bunch of seniors, I would be giving them brochures in order to put up on their fridge. In finance, you're doing this. You're doing all your financial stuff. You're getting your startup costs, your all that kind of stuff. It's being done. It's happening as you speak. You don't have to. This part of the business plan isn't about having that in there. It's about making sure that you've got it in your checklist of things to do. And then you're going to think, okay, when am I going to arrange financing, et cetera, et cetera? When am I going to hire staff if I'm going to? And how am I? This is one thing you need to do, I think, sooner than later, is set up a record keeping system, and how you're going to start keeping track of all your paperwork. When are you going to launch your marketing plan, etc. So this is all it's going to look like. You've got basically a chart in your business plan. It may be a page long, it may be half a page long, but really it is a detailed timeline as to what's going to be done when, and it really is about helping you stay accountable and on task. So don't get all freaked out about those things. It doesn't mean you have to have them done now. It means you have to have them in a list, and that you have to know that you have to demonstrate that you know that they need to be done. And again, they'll be different for each of you. And then this is a really great time to think about obstacles and barriers and things that may cause you to have a wrinkle in your plans, right? So maybe the name you really wanted actually ends up between now and whenever you register your name ends up taken. What are you going to do? You can't get a domain that even remotely makes sense for your business. What are you going to do? What happens if there's like a shock to the banking system and the interest rates for money just go completely out of whack, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When you're dealing with product, and not a lot of you are dealing with actual product, but most suppliers do want cash on delivery or 30 days. So how are you going to, if you're going to, get in there with a business, how are you going to make sure that you have enough money to start it off right? And that's, you guys have asked a lot about Danielle's business. The bridal shop, one of her biggest barriers was that in order to successfully launch her business, she needs to have a really up-to-date current stock on hand to show customers, and that's a lot of money in that industry. So she was really struggling with how do I get $50,000 in order to do it properly. So that'll be different for each of you again. So when you're talking about, make sure that you've got those solutions ready to go. So this is a great time in your business plan to say, okay, these are the things I've thought about, because investors like to know you've thought about it in terms of, okay, this could go wrong, and make sure that you've got some thoughts around what those answers look like. So that's all that is. That's this PowerPoint. Like I said, it's short and sweet. Your list needs to be comprehensive, and it needs to cover off. It has to be logical to somebody like me who really, I'm not involved in your business. I don't really know what you do, but there's going to be a flow that I said, okay, have you thought about your insurance? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And yep, I'm going to look after these things in this order and make sure that everything's ready to roll. Okay? I'll see you at the next one.